can't be happening. This is impossible.
Reese Witherspoon is larger than life in Monsters vs. Aliens.
There are 3 blind spots in the entire system.
Political intrigue and personal drama collide in State of Play.
You cannot connect anything back to me.
You here to take me in, O'Connor?
And Paul Walker may be fast, but Vin Diesel is furious.
Grab the popcorn and settle in. It's time for Slick Flicks. Hello, and welcome to Slick Flicks. My name is Yelena Baykova.
And I'm Patrick Gibbs. On this edition, we're gearing up for the summer with the big wave of spring warm-up movies. First up is the latest from DreamWorks Animation. It's Monsters vs. Aliens, but does the audience win or lose? Yelena?
Monsters vs. Aliens is a story about Susan Murphy, an ordinary young woman about to get married to a weatherman when she is struck by a meteorite on the day of her wedding and is turned into a gigantic woman. The government immediately seizes her and locks her up in a compound for life in order to protect the population from knowing about monsters. There, she meets other monsters captured by the government and befriends them. Soon, however, Earth is attacked by an alien, and Susan, soon to be known as Ginormica, and her monster friends are summoned to the rescue. Unfortunately, as too many cooks ruin the stew, too many writers can't make a story. Although filled with great one-liners and enough jokes to keep an audience laughing, the story was extremely weak. Having the moral theme of everyone is special pounded into your head numerous times, a bad relationship breakup, and two-dimensional characters, if your IQ is above 50, you might walk out with a headache. Luckily, if you went to the 3D showing and turned off your brain, there was enough bright colors and pretty music to keep one entertained. It's actually not as bad as the third Shrek movie, and might be entertaining to children. However, this certainly is no gem. I'm quite surprised Reese Witherspoon signed on as the voice of Susan Murphy. Perhaps she didn't read the script beforehand, or maybe it looks better on paper. However, bad writing, bad pacing, and a dull story all contribute to me giving this sad edition of a DreamWorks film a D. Take your kids to see it, but don't bother buying.
Well, we do agree on Shrek 3. I think it's a little bit better than you give it credit for, but not by much. It's a very weak film. However, I think that's pretty much the only area we agree on with this particular movie.
What did you like about this film?
I give Monsters vs. Aliens an A.
Really?
I think it was.
Well, I guess you're thinking of okay, you're focusing more on the audience it was targeting, which would be very, very little children who don't understand anything about
okay. Well, one thing, to go back to your review, let me say, I have an IQ of 147, and I saw this movie twice. It was a blast. Fantastic action scenes.
But you turned your brain off.
Really endearing characters. No, actually, I kept my brain on for this one, and then when I went to see Watchmen afterward, I had to turn off my brain and my sense of taste because it was,
well,
wow,
course,
it paled so badly in comparison.
Monsters and Aliens.
It really paled in comparison to Monsters vs. Aliens.
That's the thing about Monsters and Aliens is it has all these cute little scenes, but they don't really connect all together into one good story.
I disagree. I do think the story is very simplistic, but I think you're missing the point that it's, at its heart, what this is a parody of monster movies, superhero movies, and sci-fi alien invasion movies, and I think it does that
could have
brilliantly.
done a better job, I think, with the story, because I mean they could have kept all the parodies in there. They could have kept all the jokes. It would have been great if they would have just made the story a little bit more interesting, a little bit.
What
more
specifically
of a,
didn't you like about the story?
I didn't like how they just kind of threw in there that she's going to get married to this weatherman, but then she's going to be strong, and then she doesn't need the weatherman, and he turns out to be a joke and kind of a jerk also at the same time.
Whereas I thought the theme. Now I thought it had the most endearing characters of the year.
Like who?
Susan Murphy was incredibly endearing.
I didn't like
Seth
her.
Rogen
I don't know,
was
maybe
fantastic.
I didn't like her because she
Will
whined too
Arnett
much.
as Link.
I can't stand girls that whine too much.
Which is, to say the least, ironic. But Will Arnett as Link is the most memorable character
No,
in a
he's
movie
wonderful,
this year.
but the story doesn't do anything for his story. It doesn't really tell you about.
I disagree. I
It
think
barely
that
mentions his past. It doesn't
It
really.
mentions his past a
There's
number
no
of times.
arc.
and
There's no character arcs. They all stay the
There's
same.
absolutely a character arc for him. He feels useless. He feels washed up. He feels bored and. It feels like he has a meaningless existence. He goes out there
Well, he just about
and he
does. I
doesn't
mean,
do anything.
they never really
he
use any of
completely
their
failed.
special
But then
powers.
at the end, he finally he finds a side of himself,
How did he find that side? It was just like, oh, by coincidence. There you go.
which is often how it happens in real life. The point.
Well, he doesn't really find his side. He
you
goes
refer
from
to this theme of
complaining to
everybody is
winning.
special. I don't think that's what it was saying. I think it was saying there is something special inside of everyone.
Okay.
Which is different altogether. The characters in this movie have to find what they like about themselves rather than what they are told they are supposed to be, and they have to reach in and find potential.
But that's
and
not what
bring
the
it out.
story was about. It was like the
Yes,
story was
that
about
was absolutely what the
this
story
girl,
was
and then
about.
it switches to being about aliens, and then it switches back to about being the girl and how she doesn't need the jerk weather reporter, and
And all
don't like that.
interconnected very nicely.
I don't know. I don't like it.
You know, I will say there is one complaint I had with this movie,
What was
which
it?
kind of pains me to say. I'm a big fan of Stephen Colbert. I love his work on Comedy Central. I think he is a comic genius. I did not care for him in this film. I thought he got annoying. The stinger at the end with him was really weak. And quite frankly, the biggest problem, and no political agenda here intended, it simply felt outdated to me to be playing this gag of the stupid, ineffectual white guy as the president. That's so last year. It just, that was all stuff that we had seen many times before.
Well,
and that didn't
we
work for
agreed
me.
to disagree about monsters and aliens.
Yes, we
You go get it. I'm not touching it again.
Okay,
right.
and I will be seeing it again and owning it. As somebody who lives in a house with 2 little kids,
You will be seen it numerous times again.
yes, and I'm very picky about. I have to sit through a lot of
I
bad
recommend
animation,
going out
and that one.
getting Finding Nemo or the first 2 Shrek movies. Something that actually
it's
has
not
a
as good.
story.
It's not as good as Finding Nemo. I
Yeah.
will certainly give you that. I mean, it's not in the same league as Finding Nemo, obviously, but it's still miles above most of what's out there animation-wise.
Could you live with everything you put down the storm drain? Remember, we all live downstream.
Jenny, Jenny dear! Don't forget my dress for the fashion show. We want to look my best now.
Jenny, we started our book report. Here's the cover.
Yeah, now all we need is a beginning,
A middle,
and an end.
Jenny!
Jenny.
Hi, honey.
Are you feeling blue? What's wrong with being blue?
Well, where should I start?
If you're a teen dealing with stress, there's help. Visit the Will Rogers Institute website for a free booklet about teen stress and how you can de-stress your life.
Right.
There's no way you can keep your baby. There is hope. Bring your newborn to any hospital, and he or she will be caringly placed for adoption. No police, no questions.
All right. Next up is the new thriller State of Play, starring Russell Crowe and Ben Affleck. What do you think, Patrick? Pass or play on this one?
Sonia Baker.
Well, in State of Play, Ben Affleck plays Stephen Collins, a young United States congressman and veteran of the First Gulf War who's being groomed for big things on Capitol Hill. Collins is heading up an investigation into the questionable dealings of Point Corps, a privatized mercenary military operation in Iraq. But just as he is set to begin an important day, Collins receives word that Sonia Baker, one of the congressman's top research assistants, has been killed in a metro train accident, which appears to be a suicide. Aside from being his assistant, Sonia also happens to be Congressman Collins' mistress. Collins' opponents seize on the opportunity to use the scandal to kill his political career. During a probe into a series of seemingly unrelated murders, Cal McCaffrey, played by the incomparable Russell Crowe, an investigative journalist and former college roommate of Collins, finds himself tasked with solving the case, with the help of young cub reporter Della Fry, played by Rachel McAdams. The deeper Cal and Della dig to find the truth, the more dirt is uncovered, and they find themselves covered in it as well. State of Play, which is adapted by screenwriters Matthew Michael Carnahan, Tony Gilroy, the uncredited Peter Morgan, and Billy Ray, from a 6-part BBC miniseries, is a fast-paced, taut thriller filled with intrigue and human drama, and unlike so many modern thrillers, it keeps itself firmly grounded in reality. The top-notch cast, led by Academy Award winner Russell Crowe, who, let's face it, may be the acting MVP of the decade, really brings this material to life, and I found myself utterly engrossed in the proceedings. Ben Affleck, hot off his directorial debut, Gone Baby Gone, gives a triumphant turn as Collins, continuing on one of the most impressive comeback streaks in recent Hollywood memory. If Affleck keeps turning out work of this quality, he really has the potential to put his past embarrassments behind him and become one of the more respected names in Hollywood. McAdams is very strong as the naive but determined young reporter. Helen Mirren practically steals the movie as Cal's frustrated and cynical editor, and the always enjoyable Jason Bateman gives a delightful turn as a truly nasty character. But the film really leans heavily on Crowe, who gives us a refreshingly unconventional leading man type, a long-haired, disheveled, and out-of-shape slob, in stark contrast to Affleck's boyishly handsome golden boy. Cal's obsession with this story is infectious, and we become swept up in the excitement of it all along with him, and later, also swept up in the fear and impending sense of dread. Director Kevin MacDonald, who gave us The Last King of Scotland, handles this film with the skilled and deft hand of a consummate filmmaker, and with the help of film editor Justine Wright, gives us one of the most tightly paced and intricately woven thrillers since The Fugitive. That's right, I'm comparing it to The Fugitive. It's that good. State of Play is the best film I've seen this year by far, and I'm giving it a very enthusiastic A+.
Well, Patrick, I actually agree with you on this film, which is a little bit unusual. I did really enjoy it. I love the twists and the plots, which I'm not going to give away any right now.
That's all right.
And I absolutely love Russell Crowe's acting, and I thought he was great. He fit the character perfectly. Probably did a lot of research. It was awesome. What was your favorite part about it?
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that about doing a lot of research. Russell Crowe had about 1 week before he went into this movie.
Really?
Because this film was originally meant to be starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, and they both ended up dropping out.
Really?
And I'm so glad they did. And I'm a fan. I'm a fan of both of them. But
no, I agree with you. I think Russell Crowe handled the character better than what they would have. Especially since Brad Pitt is such a pretty boy, we're used to seeing him as this gentle, soft character.
And I loved having a hero who was out of shape.
Yeah.
Just
out of
not
shape,
what you expect.
has a beard, dirty hair.
Yeah, and you know, when I mentioned it being grounded in reality, I loved the fact that the one bit of action in terms of actually like trying a stunt kind of thing that Russell Crowe's character does in this movie, he hurts himself, he hurts his hand badly enough that it's bandaged up through the rest of the movie.
Exactly. And
how refreshing is that?
Yeah, and there's actually some parts where you could see a little bit of like the blood seeping through the bandage, like a real wound would have.
Exactly, as opposed to all of these movies where this
they
guy
fall and get up, no scratches, no bruises.
Just gets up. And somebody, his character, again, he was an out-of-shape reporter. It would have been utterly... I kept thinking, is he going to have to fight one of these military guys? I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Exactly.
I rushed out to see this movie a second time on opening day after the critics screening. I liked it so much. It was just so briskly paced and intelligent.
I was actually afraid of going to this movie. I thought it was going to be one of those award-winning films that were actually kind of boring, kind of slow-paced. So I really wasn't looking forward to it. I kind of thought, I'm going to hate it, but I'm going to go to it anyway because I have to. And I really enjoyed it. It was fast-paced. It was a lot of drama, a lot of action. And I remember thinking, I have these questions, like throughout the movie, there's these questions raised, and then they're answered almost immediately, but at the same time, there's more going on in the story, so you keep watching, you keep wanting to find out what's going to happen next.
And when they are answered, they never insult your intelligence.
Exactly.
The way the relationship between Crow and Stephen Collins' wife, played by the great Robin Wright Penn.
Yeah, it was very subtle at first.
It's very subtle. It grows, it builds throughout the movie as you learn what their relationship was. It's just a really intelligent script, and we don't get nearly enough of that these days.
And a great plot twist at the end. Very, very great twist.
Fantastic. I really love this movie.
When we return, we'll be talking about the latest cartoon to the big screen adaptation, Dragon Ball Evolution. Don't go anywhere, there's still more Slick Flicks coming up.
Welcome to Utah. Whether you're here for a Warriors Cross or the greatest snow on Earth, remember to check your tags because many bags look alike.
Whatever it is you like to do, you can do it best in Utah. Come see for yourself. Request a travel guide at www.utah.travel.
Forget about those abs and glutes. It's your eyes people notice. You need the eye gym. Just slip it on, and the eye gym does the rest.
Taking care of your eyes is no joke. In fact, 1 in 3 Americans over 40 has a vision problem. An eye exam can spot the early signs of vision-threatening conditions like glaucoma and other serious health problems like diabetes and high blood pressure. Do not fool with your eyes. If you're over 40, remember, an eye doctor can see things you can't. A public service message from the Vision Council of America and AARP.
This is your brain. This is your brain on road rage. Any questions?
Drive friendly. It's the smart thing to do. A public service message from the Conference of Salt Lake Valley Mayors.
You don't know what to do. You can't keep your baby. There is hope. Bring your newborn to any hospital, and he or she will be caringly placed for adoption. No police, no questions.
Horseradish. Is that for horses? Remember me, Mr. Lobster? From last Tuesday? Banana. 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 Here comes the rain. We need a hat. And why do we need a hat? That's right.
When you talk with your child, you build vocabulary, and learning starts long before school does. For more tips, go to bornlearning.org.
Welcome back to this edition of Slick Flicks. Our next movie is Dragon Ball Evolution. Based on the popular Japanese comic book series by Akira Toriyama. So what do you think, Patrick? Does Dragon Ball make a good evolution from comic book to screenplay?
Dragon Ball never even begins to rise out of the primordial ooze. To summarize the plot, 2,000 years ago, the evil warlord Piccolo descended upon the Earth during a solar eclipse and attempted to destroy the world with the aid of his disciple, Uzaru. A couple of monks conjured the Mafuba, a powerful but life-threatening enchantment designed to bind those caught within it, and used it to imprison Piccolo. Uzaru disappeared and the Earth gradually recovered, but unfortunately, as is usually the case with 2,000-year-old evil warlords, Piccolo escapes his imprisonment with the help of a mysteriously slutty girlfriend who also happens to be a dangerous assassin, and he begins searching for the legendary Dragon Balls in order to make a wish to the magical dragon Shenlong. Meanwhile, on the night of his 18th birthday, a young high school student and Karate Kid wannabe named Goku, played by Justin Chatwin from War of the Worlds, comes home from the party hosted by the school beauty queen, a girl named Chi-Chi, to find his house destroyed and his beloved grandfather, Gohan, dying. Apparently, you do mess with the Gohan. It seems that Gohan was attacked by Piccolo, who was seeking the 4-star Dragon Ball. And trust me when I say that this is the only context in which any critics will ever be using the words 4 stars and Dragon Ball in the same sentence. Before he dies, Gohan tells Goku to find the martial arts master Muten Roshi. Along the way, Goku meets Bulma Briefs, who is not an underwear label, but is in fact a resourceful young woman whose father owns a major corporation, but apparently can't afford to hire security. So he leaves dangerous search and destroy missions up to his pop star wannabe barely of age daughter, who rides around on a speeder that folds up out of her pocket. Together they join with Roshi and a thief named Yamcha, who they meet in the seemingly post-apocalyptic desert wasteland that exists approximately 3 miles outside the city limits. If you're having trouble following this description, believe me, it's much worse than the actual film. Honestly, I had to look up the plot description on Wikipedia just to write the synopsis. Some very talented actors are wasted here. From Emmy Rossum, who's been a personal favorite of mine ever since she gave such a memorable star turn in The Phantom of the Opera, to Hong Kong action legend Chow Yun-fat, or Yun-fat Chow, or whatever you want to call him, who is really slumming like he's never slummed before as the requisite Obi-Wan Kenobi character. Justin Chatwin, who seems to be looking at this as an audition demo in case Christopher Nolan decides to include Robin in the next Batman film, does deserve some credit for his remarkable impression of a 47-year-old cartoon voiceover actor trying to sound like an 18-year-old. But the only cast member who comes out on top is Jamie Chung as the love interest, Chi-Chi. Chug manages to steal every scene she's in merely by displaying a smile, among other assets, and is the only person in this movie who's likely to get a career boost out of it at all. Director James Wong, who previously gave us The One, which has the rather impressive distinction of being the worst film ever to feature either Jet Li or Jason Statham, and think about that for a moment, proves equally incompetent handling an intimate character moment or a major kung fu fight sequence. And if this isn't the movie that banishes him to the world of straight-to-DVD, nothing will. Dragon Ball Evolution is a complete failure on every level and gets a resounding F from me. Well, Yelena, what did you think?
I actually loved this film. There are some movies that are just so horribly done and have such low quality that they're actually great to go out and watch. I loved it. Now,
I will admit that I had some. I enjoyed it on a bad movie level to a certain extent.
Yes, on a bad movie level. Yes. If you love bad movies, go out and buy this. This is great. Now, what I really thought would have made the movie a lot better is if they didn't base it so much in our reality on Earth as much as they would have made it maybe an alternate reality, and this movie would have been so much better if it was just done in CGI, because those characters and those situations, completely not real. We don't want to see that at all.
It's so ridiculous, and they did not want to choose realities. And
they made it seem like it was real, and then they're like, it's a 2,000-year-old world, and they're like, where's Jesus? Jesus was around 2,000 years old. Why didn't they? I don't know. I just thought it was silly. 2,000. Why not?
Yeah, that's what the movie needed. was a cameo by. Okay.
No, but really,
to get back on track.
2,000 years old, and it's based in this world. It seemed like it was based in this world.
Yes, it was. But it was based in a world where everybody seemed to know kung fu, and it would just jump out of this world.
Now, what I really didn't like was when the film started, they had kind of like the grainy texture to kind of remind you of the old kung fu movies. And I thought, well, this is going to be kind of more like, try to at least copy those older movies, and it didn't. It was trying to go for something new. And if they had only, saturated the colors or maybe made it more black and white, something to give you the feeling of this is an alternate reality.
Well, that would be desaturating the colors rather than saturating.
Well, no, even if they did saturate the colors, make it more bright and more unrealistic, it would have been better.
Agreed. Yeah. That would have made a difference.
This is a movie where you watch it for minute per minute. You don't watch it as a story because the story just sucks.
Yeah, but I think minute per minute feels like hour on hour. I did not like any of the action.
Really?
And
I enjoyed some of it.
Chow Yun-fat, I'm a big fan of him, and I was thoroughly embarrassed for him.
I was shocked when I recognized him. I could not believe it was the same person acting in that role.
I would not use the word acting, but he seems. Yeah, he seems to be jumping back and forth between just phoning in his performance and trying to be a Japanese Robin Williams, or Chinese, I'm sorry, he is Chinese, and he just fails utterly
what's funny is
and
when I
falls
was
flat
watching
on
his
his
character
face.
and all the goofy ways he was behaving, I thought, this would have been a great cartoon character, but not real life. I do not want to see this in real life.
And, maybe this worked in the comic, but it sure doesn't work at all in this. And did you stick around for the stinger in the ending credits?
No, what was it?
Well,
yeah, give it away, don't worry.
Let me just say that it is the longest, most pointless stinger. To have the credits start and then stop so you can watch 1 minute and 15 seconds of a stinger, most of which consists of a woman making soup. This movie just...
Wait, what? Who is this woman and why is she making soup?
You don't want to know, trust me. Anyway, the complete waste of time. Do not bother to see this film.
I completely disagree. If you enjoy bad movies, go out and get it immediately.
I will... If you're there to do Mystery Science Theater 3000 on your own, and get the audience annoyed at you the way my brother and I did.
Kung Fu movies, go out and get it.
Yeah, it does work on that level. We were making jokes. My brother Paul and I were making jokes through the whole thing, especially, my God, every time they said things like, "Finally, the Dragon Balls are within my grasp." I laughed out loud at that line.
Yeah.
But the point is, we both agree it was not a well-made, well-plotted, well-acted, well-written.
But it was fun. It was fun.
It was fun in the same way that, well, I can't think of anything that's fun in that way. But
it's very special.
It was fun in the same way an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 is fun. I'll give it that. All right. And last but not least, well, yeah, because of Dragon Ball, not least, is the movie that's taking the box office by storm. Vin Diesel returns to the franchise that made him a star in Fast and Furious. Yelena, should we hurry to see this, or should we be furious at Hollywood for their lack of original ideas?
Well, Patrick, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. When I first heard the motto for this film, new model, old parts, I thought, great. Some die-hard fan of the Fast and Furious has convinced the studios to waste more money on funding another bad racing car movie. I was sure I'd need a stiff drink to sit through this Vin Diesel film. However, I'm happy to say that I was extremely surprised and sober when I walked out of the theater. Director Justin Lin and writer Chris Morgan teamed up to make a great story continuing the adventures of Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor. The film begins with a great action sequence of Dominic, played by Vin Diesel, and his crew of thieves stealing a truck shipment of gasoline and barely escaping with their lives. In this theft, no one dies, not even the truck driver's iguana, whom the driver grabs before jumping out of the moving truck as it goes over a cliff. Even though a life of crime is good, Dominic is bothered that the law is getting closer and closer to tracking him down. He decides to leave his crew and girlfriend, Letty, with the hope that when the law catches up, they will be safe and only he will be caught. He's not in hiding for long before his sister calls him to tell him that Letty was murdered in LA. He returns to LA with a motive of vengeance and ends up teaming up with Brian O'Connor again, played by the good-looking, bad-acting Paul Walker, to track down Letty's killer and bust a drug ring. Vin Diesel's performance is great as an action icon. It's good to see him back on track and out of silly movies like The Pacifier. Unfortunately, it also looks like he doesn't have much left in him. Although not a great actor, I think that much like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his run as an action star has reached its end. I give Fast and Furious, with consideration of what audience it targeted, a B+. Definitely something I want in my DVD collection next to Gone in 60 Seconds and The Transporter.
Well, I think you hit on it with saying, given the target audience. I was going to really kind of say you're giving this film way too much credit and giving it too high a rating. I probably give it a C+. But at the same time, when you put it that way, I may raise it to a B-.
When I put it that way, I'm just right.
Yeah, exactly. Given the target audience, there is a specific crowd that these films are geared toward, and
And it's got everything. It's got girls, it's got cars, it's got action, and all of it is great. Actually, I was quite surprised by some of the sequences where they first come to the racing area, and you see millions and millions of girls, all of them dressed really, really hot. And like, there's not a single guy except for the 3 guys that are racing. I thought that was really funny because it totally shows you who the audience is targeting.
It did, and strangely, I didn't have a problem with that.
No, I didn't either. I thought it was great.
I have to admit, this was one of the most surprising guilty pleasures I've ever seen on film. Because I could not.
You couldn't even finish the first.
In order to review this film, I finally broke down and tried to watch the first movie, which is directed by one of my least favorite directors, Rob Cohen. And it was such a dull, stupid film, I couldn't even get through it.
Now, I hadn't watched the first one in a very, very long time, but I remember that I did actually like it.
But it
was a long time ago. So
right.
I don't know, maybe I was younger and dumber or something.
Probably not sober. I'm impressed that you were sober.
I've worked up in my years.
Yeah,
now that I'm finally old
that's
enough.
good. You should save the drinking for when you're doing screenwriting. Anyway, the point that I was...
Do you have one? Okay, getting back on track about the film. I thought it was really great how a lot of the scenes and a lot of the action sequences, they would have these little twists in the end. Like you wouldn't even notice them, or they'd be sitting down having a meal, and all of a sudden they'd find out some tragedies going on. And I'm not going to give anything away in the story, but it was great. The story was actually very intelligent and clever, I thought.
I would disagree there. I thought it was a silly story.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was a silly story, but it was fun. The reason the race car crowd, boy, I'm not one of those people. My 4-year-old nephew could tell you a lot more about cars than I can. But I enjoy a good turn-off-your-brain buddy cop movie, and that's what this felt like to me. The opening action sequence wowed me.
Incredible.
It really wowed me.
One of the best action sequences I've seen.
And I wouldn't quite go that far,
okay,
but it was really, really good. Director Justin Lin, I think, is going to be moving on to some big things after this. And the final
and it's incredible. I can't believe he took it on. Instead of making it a new movie, he took on something that was old and broken and fixed it. I really feel that way about it.
I agree. I think he took something that, the 4th Fast and the Furious movie, the fact that can be getting
What was the second one? I can't remember.
The second one, okay, we have the Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious,
Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift. And the title of the second one bugged me. It's like, the first one was Too Fast, the second one was Too Furious, but the third bowl of porridge was just right. And then the title, Fast and Furious, I have to say this is the dumbest title for a sequel in recent memory. All they could come up with was to leave out the articles from the first movie. So my expectations were ridiculously low.
Because it brought back the fans of the old one, and it brought in some new ones.
It did, and I have to say, I'm going to admit this is going to be the most ridiculous thing I ever say on here. This movie made me cry.
What?
I'll tell you what, not because there was anything particularly emotionally moving or great about it. The film, of course, there was not. But
were you happy to see Vin Diesel?
No.
No, okay.
The reason it made me cry is because, as we talked about the target audience for this film, a good friend of mine, my former roommate, Andrew Hinsey, who unfortunately passed away several years ago, is exactly the target audience for this film. He loved fast car racing movies, and I watched this movie the whole time thinking, this would be Andrew's favorite movie of all time. And all I can say is, I hope he gets to watch it from where he is, because he would have a blast with it. And for that reason, more than any other, I am giving this movie a recommendation as a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And like I said, this is one of the movies that I'm actually going to go out and buy.
And that's it for this week's show.
Thank you for joining us. On the next installment of Slick Flicks, we'll be hitting the streets to see what you, the members of the movie-going public, have to say about the first big summer blockbusters of 2009.
Until then, go out to the theaters and enjoy the movie-going experience. Don't download them illegally on your computer, or you'll have to answer to Hugh Jackman and me, and we will take you down.